So do you take into account the fact that on average a male full-time employee works longer hours than a female full-time employee?
Not.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about the concept, the idea, the specter of a gender pay gap. Now, this is the main screeching point I hear from a lot of left-wing people, a lot of liberals, a lot of feminists. They're all about it. Oh, women only make X amount of money on a dollar compared to men. It's unfair. We got to have fair pay legislation, all kind of stuff. You got to have laws passed to make sure that women and men get paid the same thing. But one thing I don't hear in all these rantings and ravings is why this thing exists if it does exist. They don't really get into the minutia. They just say, oh, it's unfair, it's racist, or it's sexist, or whatever they want to say. Whatever kind of obic over is. It's not really a real argument. Now, I've come across some very interesting video from the Australian government, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll link to it in the box. But we got to get into this because there's going to be some points raised. There may be some hearts and minds change. And throughout the video, I'm going to give my input on what I think is the cause for a gender pay gap if, keyword if, it actually exists. Now, of course, this video will be in the box. If you're on IG, visit the link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
So do you take into account the fact that on average a male full-time employee works longer hours than a female full-time employee?
Blank stare, like the computer just shut off for a minute. It's got to reboot. We got to try to recalibrate and get it together. That's a real thing. If, let's say, for example, you're working in the office right next to a woman, you get paid X, she gets paid X, but somehow you take home more money. Now, if she is a lunatic, a screecher, a super left-wing person, she'll say it's because of the gender pay gap. How can that be when you guys get paid the exact same thing? Maybe he works more hours than you. Maybe he does overtime. Maybe whenever he's called upon to come into the office on a Saturday, Sunday, he's grinding. And that's the reason why he makes more. Men are typically, not all the time, not all, typically more ambitious and hardworking than women, typically, but not all the time. Like a guy like me, I'm crazy. I would stay in a dungeon for days, never leave my house, and just work. I'm like a worker bee. I'm like a worker ant. That's what I would do when I'm in grind mode. But women typically don't do that. Now, let's see what her response is to all that. And let's start from the top for full context.
So do you take into account the fact that on average a male full-time employee works longer hours than a female full-time employee?
Not directly, no.
You don't?
But we annualise the part-time hours and those that have worked full-time but for part of the year. So that way, because at the moment, what I can tell you is women work part-time at 3 times the rate of men. So by annualising it, we are looking at a more realistic...
So you base it on annual salary?
Yeah.
What about if you did it on an hourly rate? What would be the gender hourly pay gap?
Now, that was kind of some gobbledygook you just said right there, but basically what she's saying is they look at the annual take-home, and then they would just compare it. So I may make X. Let's just say for a random number, I make $50,000 in a year. She makes $45,000 in a year working the same job. So then she'll say, look, there's a gender pay gap, but you're not looking at the reasons why that is. You just see numbers, compare them, and say there's a gap. And that's your conclusion?
A more realistic...
So you base it on annual salary?
Yeah.
What about if you did it on an hourly rate? What would be the gender hourly pay gap?
Well, we don't have that data set.
You don't have that data.
Now we need that because, again, we can make the same thing hourly, but I'm going to take home more than you because I work more hours. That's silly. Why would you not have that in there? That's crazy. This is somebody that's trying to push propaganda. Look at his face. Defeated. She was defeated from the beginning. when she had that blank stare, loading screen, not ready to connect to the internet, Bluetooth not working face. When she had that from the jump, she was defeated. But I digress.
Because we ask for annualised salaries from our employers when they report their data in.
Okay, so if a woman was working fewer hours but earning the same rate per hour as a man doing the same job, would that show up as a gender pay gap?
Yes. Say it.
No.
No, don't start lying. Don't lie. Say yes, because my man already knows the answers. I know the answers. You guys know the answers. But what he's doing right now is exposing this to be nonsense. It's exposing it to be nonsense.
But, well, then in that case, you are looking at hourly rates.
Janine Bridoft, Research and Analytics Executive Manager. So we do not collect the real hours that an employee might have worked. So what we do collect is the hours that are specified in a contract, and that is provided by organisations to us. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, do you annualise it on the assumption that men and women are working the same number of hours, or is it actual earnings?
It's actual earnings, and we are unable to. We don't have the data to distinguish or to then adjust for hours, because we cannot collect the real hours.
Okay, you stumbling and bumbling. You stuttering like Stanley. This is Janine Breithoft, Workplace Gender Equality Agency. Afuera. Get rid of that agency right now. Totally useless.
Employees are working.
So it's not possible to tell whether any or some of the gender pay gap is just simply attributable to a different number of hours worked. Is that right?
It depends on whether we're looking at hours that are in contract, or whether we're looking at hours that employees worked as, overtime.
Overtime, yeah, exactly. Because look, okay, the contract says, okay, you're gonna typically get X amount of hours, whatever. But if you're called upon to do more, and you do more, and you get paid more, that's how that goes. You might get time and a half, holiday pay, if somebody calls off and you cover for somebody, because somebody calling off, that's not necessarily going to be in the contract to say, okay, well, you're not going to, you may not have certain hours because you called off. Okay, you're not getting paid just regardless whether you show up or not. So you call off on the day, you're missing 8 hours. You might call off quite a bit throughout the year. You're missing a certain number of hours. And the person who made more than you filled in for you and worked over. So they're going to make more.
Why is it you don't look at hours worked? You don't collect it, but the ABS does. It's available.
The ABS does
Yeah.
does a survey, yes.
Every 2 years.
Yes.
But again, as I say, we collect census data, that is survey data. And the other thing I would say at this stage, Senator, is just because somebody might be sitting at their desk for 12 hours a day doesn't mean you're getting 12 hours of productivity.
Don't. Look, man, I'm on the clock, whatever. That's a contract, ain't it? I'm on the clock, I'm doing my thing. But that could be regardless of who's there, who's sitting there. It don't really matter. If you sitting there, if I'm sitting there, it don't really matter. At the end of the day, I'm on the clock. You can't try to be judging it after the fact. She's fishing for excuses to try and defeat what he is saying, but she has nothing really
Out of them, and doesn't mean that they're working in essence any harder than someone that may sit at their desk for 8 hours.
So look, don't worry that I'm not really there the whole time. Don't worry. Look, if I don't show up in the day and you there 12 hours, we're the same, right? We're equal, right? That's crazy. But yeah, shout out to my man, the senator out there in Oz, Australia. Shout out to the land down under, the Outback, all that good stuff. Outback Steakhouse, Crocodile Dundee, all of that. RIP to my man, Steve Irwin. Shout out to you guys over there. That was a beautiful display from my man. He didn't do it by over talking. He was very calm, matter of fact, to the point. That whole useless council that can get thrown away. Like all these people, workplace gender agency, afuera, get rid of them. Shout out to my man Javier Milei down there in Argentina. But as I close, I want to say this. The gender pay gap could exist, but it's not because there's some kind of anti-woman thing going on. It's because men work harder, work longer, more ambitious. We negotiate the contracts more. We just go out there and grind and go hard. Typically, not all the time. I've seen some women that really go hard, that stomp guys in the wine when it comes to the work, but that's not really normal. Okay, we just work better than women typically. Now, obviously, I'm not trying to say we're better than women. We're just different. We're different. Like, I'm not going to sit here and have a baby. How is that going to happen? I'm not going to have a cycle every month. I'm not having a baby. I'm not breastfeeding. Obviously, there's roles for people when it comes to men and women, humanity. We're not the same. And a lot of people can't really understand that. And they try to come up with these complicated, convoluted ways to try and make us be the same. And they keep failing time and time again. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your take on what's going on here with the whole gender pay gap discussion? Do you think that I'm correct? Do you think the Workplace Gender Equality Agency are correct? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. It's pretty simple. You work more, you get paid more. You get paid an hourly rate. I get paid the same thing. I have more hours. I get paid more. It ain't nothing else to it. Okay. If you want as much money as I'm getting, work as much as what I work. That's it. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.